Hi everyone, so this is my breakdown of my remix of ElyBeatmaker by ElyBeatmaker. I need to be pretty fast because I don't want this to be too long. I'm not gonna go in depth in some things because I want it to be pretty quick. I'm just going to talk about the things that I think are the most interesting. Anyway, before we start, I wanted to say huge thanks to ElyBeatmaker for making this contest. It was a good thing for everybody overall. As you might hear, by the way, I am not English. I am really sorry. Hearing this accent, it's so annoying, but you'll have to deal with this. At least now you can play this game where you guess what country I am from. So let's start right now from this sound, which is the main bass that you can hear in the two drops. So this on its own is really just this, which you might recognize from the ending of the original song. I also did the same thing in the second drop. I just chopped up the original sample in the ending and then I just put that through this really long effect chain, which is actually not doing anything too crazy. So if I turn off all the effects, you can hear that the first one is this distortion, which is just bringing up the highs, and then I'm putting this delay. This I think is called something like tonal delay. What I'm doing is I have a delay that has a really short time. As you can see in the top left corner, it's 0.14. So you can hear that kind of metallic tone that it's creating. If I turn up the feedback, it's going to sound like this. So with this volume, you can kind of control the length of the tail of the sound. And then this is more distortion, which is also making this tail a bit longer. And then just EQing. And then there's this cool auto-tune plugin, which is free, by the way. It's by Melda Production. And I'm just using it as a Foreman shifter. So as you can see, if I turn up the knob, it's going to sound a bit brighter, while if I turn it down, it's going to sound a bit deeper. So finding the right amount to make it just a tiny bit brighter. This makes a big difference, by the way. And there's also some vibrato still from the same company. You can barely hear this one, but it's there, and it's also on the sub that is following the main bass. So overall they sound like this. Now for the drums, I just have a standard kick snare trap pattern with some open hi-hats as well, and I actually have noise, like actual white noise in here. It makes everything sound a bit more full and it fills up the empty spots, especially after this first kick. If you listen, there's really nothing there with noise. You can hear here that this is without the noise. With the noise, it just sounds a tiny bit more powerful overall. Also, the second bass is the same exact sample, it's just pitched down, as you can see. Then to the kind of intro part, which is really just really simple piano and strings with the speech, obviously. As you might see, the strings have this channel volume that is going up and down. It's supposed to make it sound a bit more realistic. Then we have those cool vocal chops that are panned around. If I look into the panning, they are kind of left and right, and they layer with the all praise the high. And you might have guessed they are from the high that B00 sings in this spot. All praise the high and then in the later section it gets harmonized. So then we have some standard supersaws. And the drums are really the same thing, by the way. I just put a simpler kick pattern. Plus some trapeze snare rolls. This one as well. If you're wondering, by the way, the kick is in a pattern and not as a sample. So usually with trap, if I'm doing like hip hop, I would do everything in a pattern. With dubstep, since I have to like do transients and releases, maybe I do some reverse stuff, or I just have to put a loop or something, I'm gonna do the drums in the playlist as audio files, but the kicks I put in a pattern together with the sidechain. I have a main sidechain and a build-up sidechain that is a bit less present when the kicks are really fast, so the overall volume just doesn't go all the way down. This one is just a tiny bit weaker, but I put them together in a pattern, so I don't have to put a kick and the sidechain in the playlist, then I have to move them together, and it's pretty annoying. And I'm also not doing the trick with the limiter, so that I can, if I now, like, you can't see the automation, but it's actually here, and if I change the curve that is here, and it's really customizable, it will be applied to all of the side chains. Anyway, this is kind of a trick that I use. The bass is sounds like this. It's a really simple sound. So there are actually two sounds. The main one is this one, which has a big dip in the mids, and then I just left the highs. That kind of buzzing sound you can get really simply. You just have a saw wave, then noise, just a tiny bit of noise, and then I use the Citrus wave shaper. There's no filter applied, but I use the wave shaper as well as an external wave shaper to have more distortion, and then I just cut the mids to leave some space because they're really unnecessary. And then obviously the bass and the highs I left. And then this one is just playing a higher octave, and it just glues everything together. Then to transition from the melodic part to this really heavy and atonal, almost there's no harmony in there kind of part, I looped the same chords, as well as have this master pitch automation, which moves everything but the vocal, because the vocal is an audio.
All praise the high mayor.
And it cannot be pitched, but everything else slowly falls. Also, the bass has this high pass filter that is just cutting the lows. That makes the sound a bit thinner. This is just a filter sweep, and same trick with the pitch. Also, I have those glitchy things that I wanted to show how I did. So I have two Edisons, and really it's really cool you can do that. So you're basically recording live performing some glitchy things on the sample with this scrub function right here on the Edison. The bottom Edison, this one, is recording what you're playing on your first one, and then you can take any weird loop, like let's say this one. Okay, so it's recording, and now you can play around with the thing, and in the second Edison you're gonna end up with this. So I did that. I played around with that function on the vocal, and then I just dragged that in the playlist. This is actually a bit longer. The second drop, I put as an offbeat the drop kind of chant. This is a more trap kind of drop. Also, I have a bit more swing. The snares are a bit different. From this, we get this, which is a more trap snare. It's a bit shorter. And then I also have some additional hi-hats. that also have some swing, as well as the 808s, obviously, because this is trap. And then the bass is the same. I have the chants. Same thing. The second bass is a lower octave, and then this outro. This is the meme kind of section. I'm using the same vibrato, just with more depth and rate, to get this meme kind of vibrato.
Very fun.
And then distortion for the, you know. So I think that's all I wanted to show. I could spend like 4 hours talking about every little detail I did on this track, but I'm gonna end it here. So I hope this was interesting. Somehow you maybe learned something, maybe you got inspired. Either way, I wanted to show how you made this project because it's really not complicated. So anyway, thanks for watching. Goodbye. Comes back in the drop. It's actually a lot. It's actually a lot more powerful, and it. Oh, why is this? Oh, so I have a weird setup, and I went over this. So whether whatever, I'm gonna cut this part anyway.